Next week, you're going to be receiving on Friday a budget book. And I thought what was important tonight is to kind of give you a preview so that when you do receive our budget book, it will make sense to you. And so tonight is really kind of the appetizer, so to speak. And I think it's important to understand what went into the process. And when you think of budget, it's really about a fiscal plan. And so we've been diligently at work, and I have to tell you, we began that work during the spring last year as we were trying to finalize the budget that we're currently in. And the budget that you'll be receiving really is based around balancing the needs that we have and the improvement efforts that we need to continue to work at as a school system, but also being extremely mindful of the economic conditions. And so you will see on the budget, in the budget, that we've really organized it around a theme of balancing those needs and the work that we need to do to keep moving forward as a district, but also restraining ourselves, understanding the economic climate. We have a guideline for this budget by our long-range fiscal plan, and that's come in with a budget of 3% or less. So let me just highlight the process. So as you look at the book, it's not just a bunch of numbers. It's really the needs that we have in order to continue to move forward as a district. We began last summer with a great deal of research, and that's really an opportunity where we can really invest some time based upon our conversations and discussion with the questions that we had last spring. What I think is unique and extremely strong in comparison to other communities that I've had the pleasure of working in is really the collaboration that we have with the town. We don't build this budget in isolation. We work really closely, taking a look at from a perspective related to health insurance, from community use of our buildings, from an IT perspective, from any cost efficiency or any cost-effective measure. We receive a great deal of guidance, and so when we're looking at fuel costs and when we're looking at gasoline, we receive that information from the town. And Ron and I, along with Craig, have frequently met with both Rudy and Dan Stewart so that we're continually in communication in regards to the needs that we have, and are there any cost efficiencies that we can team up with in order to reach our destination. What's real important is that this budget be a needs-based budget. This is what we need to at least provide the current level of quality as well as to move forward as a district. So that's absolutely critical. So how do we determine what's needs-based? We start with our enrollment. And that really helps us build our staff plan, which also supports the programming that we provide. We look at trend data. We are a data-driven district when it comes to financial planning. It's just not around student achievement and programming, but it's also from a fiscal nature. We also are highly engaged in competitive bidding. And so you're going to hear about some of that tonight with some of the other reports. We're currently out to bid on our school transportation. We're currently out to bid on our health insurance. We have completed a very successful bid around our utility costs, not only for next year, but over the next 3 years, looking at our generation costs, and we have saved substantially through a very effective bidding process. So any opportunity that we have to bid, we take advantage of. The other guidepost that we utilize in the development of this budget is that if we needed something new and above and beyond what we currently have, how could we reallocate current resources? Or how could we redeploy staff from one area to another? We then moved into a site development or an area of responsibility. And when I talk about site development, that would be the 5 schools that we have within our district. The areas of responsibility would be buildings and grounds, curriculum and instruction, district-wide. And so each of those particular areas built a budget based upon the needs-based in supporting those criteria above. We came together as an administrative team, and we presented those budgets to one another and did a critical review. We shared practice so that we could learn from one another and could make the necessary adjustments. We pushed each other with our thinking. We asked the difficult questions. We looked closely and carefully at what were there alternative approaches to get at our destination where we wanted to be. We identified a series of research, so for the last 3 weeks, we've been running like crazy to really try to answer those questions, and I'll give you a couple of examples of those in just a moment. And lastly, and just as important as everything above, the board adopted budget assumptions. And so the document that you'll receive on Friday supports those assumptions for this fiscal plan that you adopted early in the fall. I really need to stress that this is a very fluid process. For me as superintendent, it never ends. You seem to go from one budget to the next. You live it 365 days. But what I want you to keep in mind, the budget that you're going to receive next Friday is what we know of today. And when I say today, literally today, the day you receive it. We have some questions that we're still trying to resolve before we put some final numbers into this budget. And I want you to think about the budget you receive next week is a fiscal plan to support work 18 months from now. This is what we know. This is our best thinking. So we're presenting a budget to you in December that needs to fund through June 2013. So things change along the way. Energy costs, insurance costs, staffing levels, enrollment. So this is what we know right now. When we get to the Board of Finance in March, we'll have more data. We'll have another data point. When we get to the RTM in May, we'll know more. In May, that will be another data point. So that's important to keep in mind. It's a fluid process. So we need to be flexible and we need to be adaptable. So the budget that we're going to present to you next week is really focused on continuous improvement efforts. It's based around an economic perspective. We're working real hard to stay within that 3% guideline. We've looked at containment efforts, and there are many throughout the budget that you'll receive. There are a number of efficiencies that you will find as well as cost avoidance. So a great example of cost avoidance relates to health insurance with our recent negotiations with the teachers. That is an avoidance of some costs without some of the design changes that we've made in the plan. The efficiencies really come around the bidding process that we have. The containment is really around the redeployment or reallocation. Rather than go up where we need to go up, we need to rethink and reallocate funds to other levels. So that's an important part of the process that we've gone through. It really needs to be a need. Excuse me. We really want it to be a want, but it's a need. So this is needs-based. There are a number of things that we said this is not the time. It would be nice, but it's not the time. And we really experienced that all together last springtime as we really looked at the current budget. There is a great deal of volatility. And the most volatile item relates to health insurance. So we're out to bid, and we don't have a real number as to where it will fall at this point in time. We will know that by March 1st. Here's another thing that we need to consider as we built this budget. There were a number of things that we did in the springtime that made a lot of good sense to us. We had access to some revenue last year that we won't have access to this time around. We had jobs fund revenue that funded a number of positions within the current budget, $84,513, and we distributed that across a couple of different positions. We did not have access to that funding. We utilized choice accounts. Over the years, with any students that were part of the choice program, Waterford received $2,000 per student. We utilized that money to reduce to not have to deal with some major reductions. We also used one of our funds with before and after care. We also had some funds that we projected to be remaining in our budget last year, and we allocated that to folks who were retiring for the retirement benefits that they have within the contract. So those particular line items are going from $0 to a dollar amount. Those are the dollar amounts that they're going to increase. We know of 8 retirements as of today. The incentive payout will be $16,000, and the sick leave payout per contract will be $161,000 plus. We have $433,000 of costs that we just started the budget with before we did anything else. $429,000 is 1% increase. From the get-go, we were 1% out of the gate in building this new budget. So, we prayed, and we prayed, and we prayed, and although we have special education costs increasing in the next year's budget, we have a number of those costs that will be eligible for excess costs. And so we're projecting that we will have additional revenue of nearly a little over $269,000. So rather than start in layman's terms with a shortfall of $433, we're looking at $164,000. I wish it was zero, but it's $164. So we're not starting over 1%. We're starting a little bit around 0.4%. We know from enrollment that we'll be able to reduce 2 staffing positions that are directly connected to enrollment, and that would occur at the elementary level. Right now, we're projecting, I believe it is 78 students fewer next year. Now, what's interesting is you can't automatically say that might be 3 or 4 teaching positions because our enrollment shifts from grade to grade. We have some grades going up, some going down, so we're going to need to do some staffing reassignments along the way. But that's a typical annual event. So you just can't say 78 students is really 3 or 4 teachers. It's really 2. And you'll have a chance in the budget to look at the staffing plan and what the class sizes will be. We have a number of design changes, so this is really cost avoidance. Otherwise, we would have been adding to the budget. There are turnover savings with those 8 retirements. We will be having staff members that will be retiring at a higher salary, and we'll be able to hire staff at a lower salary. I already commented on the special ed tuition. We've looked very, very closely at equipment. You will see a reduction in that area because we really pushed ourselves, need or a want. We've reviewed the FICA expense, and again, with more veteran staff retiring, younger staff coming in, our FICA expenses will go down. Electricity, the bidding process has been very successful for us. It just happens that this year we only have 5 labor contracts out of the 6 to negotiate. So our legal expenses next year ought to be reduced. Nursing contract, which I'm recommending action for you to take tonight. We've also worked very closely with VNA, and we're able to reduce the costs associated with school nursing. There are a number of cost containment items within the union contracts that we'll be able to reduce. We're reducing textbooks, we're reducing library books, we're reducing natural gas expenses. So you'll see those reductions in the budget proposal that you'll get next week. Here are the drivers behind all of this. You will see in the budget that I am leaving the health insurance as level funding. So what does that mean? It's a little bit over $6.4 million right now. The exact same number will transfer to next year, knowing that it's only a placeholder. We will not have accurate data until mid to late February. We can't be guessing on this. We really need to be smart about this. And so as I move forward in this, I'm going to be recommending after we adopt the budget at the end of January that we come back as a board in early March. We'll have the real numbers. We'll then take a look at our budget so that before we go to Board of Finance, any revised budget that we need to do, we will do. We know that health insurance costs will increase. There's no doubt about it. But we need to do this accurately so we're really portraying a legitimate, incredible cost to the community. Our salary accounts will be going up, although nothing like a year ago. So with our contract settlement, they're dramatically different. We have a significant increase in special ed and magnet school transportation. We currently have 79 students between the middle school and high school that attend our magnet schools. We have some wonderful opportunities for our students, but I also say we've got a great opportunity right here in the Waterford Public Schools. But we provide transportation. And so you're going to see an increase in that particular area of over $100,000. We're also legally obligated to provide services to our special education students who attend those magnet schools. We're also going to see an increase in that particular area. We pay a tuition for students to attend a magnet school, and if the student has an IEP, we also pay an additional fee to deliver those services. We also have an increase in our autism service needs in the upcoming year. And Kathy and her staff have done a great job in the area of special education, looking at every single student and what their needs are. But you'll also see a significant increase in this particular area. The fuel costs will go up. Again, the guidance we've received from the town. So the costs for transportation with our buses, the gasoline, will go higher. Instructional supplies, we reduced that account by 30% for this particular year. The cupboard is there. So you're going to see an increase next year somewhere around the 10% in order to have the necessary supplies to deliver the instructional program. Software, we have some slight increases as well as an accounting adjustment that we needed to make. The financial software really needs to be part of our software account. I think that says fuel oil. We're also looking at a significant increase there. I think it's like 84 cents a gallon in comparison to a year ago. It's something like that dollar amount. Again, that's a guideline. And I also have to say in quotes, we hope that's enough. We know a year ago we were $175,000 in deficit in that particular account. Propane, you'll notice a slight increase, as well as athletic transportation. So if fuel's costing us more, so will the transportation. So those are the particular items that you will see as increases as well as decreases. One of the ways you know that it's needs-based is that we just didn't roll over the accounts. We really looked at every single account. You're going to see a lot of red in the book with many, many reductions. And where you see the increases, they'll be substantial because there's a student behind it or an economic factor behind it. But we can't forget about another reason why we're here. We're also looking at moving our district forward. So with curriculum renewal for the upcoming year, we have the areas of art, music, school counseling, as well as our informational technology areas for curriculum renewal. This year, our mathematics curriculum is going through the renewal, and it will be phase 1 of purchase for new mathematics resources. But I can tell you, in those two areas, you'll see a reduction in the budget, but it still allows us to move forward. So I want to talk a little bit about an approach to review this budget. Next week, you're going to receive the budget. It's going to look a little bit different. We're giving it to you in a loose leaf binder, 3-hole punched. You'll see a little bit more explanation than you've seen in the past. You'll have some explanation for the various accounts, but also we're embedding the reasons why things are going up or things are going down, so it doesn't become a mystery. So you see that right up front. The other piece is it's a fluid process. There may be times along the way as we go through this that you take a page out, we insert a new page after we make adjustments. So we've scheduled 2 different workshops, and we're looking at presenting these particular areas of the budget on January 5th. I want to come back to you with a little bit more detail around an overview of the fiscal plan. We want to take a look at those district-wide accounts that go into the development of this budget, the enrollment and staffing, the curriculum and instructional needs, and technology. I think this also will help the board. That's the preparation for January 5th. Assuming good weather, January 12th, we'll take a look at the special education, our 3 elementary schools, middle school, high school, as well as athletics and buildings and grounds. Just as we presented to one another as a team, the administrative staff and the folks connected to those areas, they'll be presenting the budgets to you so that you can understand what went into the preparation and the development of the budget, and also give you the opportunity to ask any and all of us questions. So that's the timeline that we have. We have January 26th as an adoption, but we do need to come back in early March once we have the health insurance. And that's the elephant in the room that we need to really figure out where it is. And it doesn't make any sense for us to without knowing the real number, to be making all other kinds of decisions with the budget. So we're going to present to you with all the other accounts, the need that we have, and what the cost is as of this date. And then we'll take care of the health insurance at a later date. Here's what we still need to research before we really have a budget that the RTM can really wrap its arms around by May. The health insurance bid, I've already given you the timeline. By the time we get to our meeting at the end of January, we will know the cost for school transportation. We'll be getting those bids back by the middle of January. We will have an opportunity to vet them and then have a real dollar amount. Later on in the agenda, I'm going to talk to you about an opportunity perhaps to reduce our energy costs. So we may have some more information associated with that. Beginning in January, we start to negotiate with 4 of our non-certified unions, and we're already taking a look at special education costs, in particular connected to the magnet schools. Craig, Kathy, and I visited with Jen Seacom, the Executive Director of Project Learn last week, to really talk about the escalating costs that we have associated with special education services at the magnet school level. We are going to organize a cooperative in the area where we bring the other special ed directors and school finance directors and business managers together to think about, are there some economies of scale related to transportation as well as providing those services. Maybe Waterford is the provider in those schools. And we're providing services also to the other area communities, and we're charging them for those services with our personnel. We're really trying to figure out, are there ways that we can contain the cost? Because that is a driver for us. It's a great opportunity. But as we look at the costs, they continue to escalate. So those are areas that we're looking at a little greater in depth, and we may have some opportunities. I stress we may have some opportunities to reduce in those particular areas. So hopefully that kind of gives you the background as you get the budget book next Friday to take a look at in preparation for January 5th. So let me pause here and get your reaction or any questions.
It's funny you said that, Jerry, about the transportation, because I asked Craig and Ron if it would be possible for us to maybe partner with East Lyme and in London with the transportation with our special ed children.
Well, let me tell you how proactive we've been.
And the magnet school.
As a result of our budget review process, Kathy made contact with every contiguous town and identified where their special education students are being placed out of district. Mm-hmm. And believe it or not, we do not have one match. Not one match. But we did all the legwork, and one of the things that we want to create is a database that every district around us can now enter. And so we're going to take the initiative to do that. It's something that's not in place right now, but it can be a very cost-effective measurement for us in the future. So we don't want to wait for the future. We want to start it now. And it may be between now and the end of the year that there might be a couple of things that pop up where we could collaborate.
Could we do it with the magnet schools? Or are they on the regular ed buses?
That's the question that we posed to Learn, and again, that will be part of our meeting. And they also have a transportation coordinator, and maybe each individual district will not be providing individual transportation, but maybe there are 2 school systems that could partner and share half the cost. That would be a new experience. We'd like to blaze the trail with that.
One more question. Could we share, like for instance, if you have a student that needs an aid, and that aid could help 2 students from different districts, could you do that? Could you share the cost of
Right now there are flat fees connected to all of our services, and so unless you ask the question, the bill continues to come in. We're asking the question.
Oh, good. Because maybe you could, Renee can take care of 2 or 3 students.
Well, we had a very productive meeting. We're kind of blazing the trail with this, and we're going to organize a meeting through Learn and get other partners into it. Because our goal in this whole thing is if we can reduce the operational side, we can hold on to our staff and our program. That's the approach we took with this budget.
I think just like to get a little more clarification on the fluid process. When we won't have all our budget to the Board of Finance in March. At that point, we're not as fluid for any longer.
One will have our health insurance.
Okay.
We'll have our transportation. These are the things that are kind of floating.
Yeah.
I would love to say we'll have those 4 labor contracts handled by then. But we'll have a good handle on this. Yeah. Yeah. Good handle.
We talked a little bit about special education costs when we are sending kids to the magnet. Who's determining the level of service?
It's all right.
RI?
Yeah. But you know, and I just throw this out for consideration, as a district, we've been very good about basically allowing all of our students who want to go to one of the magnet schools. It may be a time for us to think about that a little bit different. Many districts put a cap, and they say, so for example, last year in our initial budget, we had 5 students going to one of these schools. We had 8 or 9 students very interested in that. We can take some control over that. And so, in a better time, I think we said, wherever you want to go. But again, that's something that we can talk about. Do we want to say it's 5 students or 8 students instead of everybody who would like to go that gets in?
We just put a cap on 20 or 22,
We do that.
24.
That's only at the RMMS.
Thank you. Kevin, do you want to go? And I don't mean to shut up the conversation, but go ahead.
Do we have energy costs? I mean, how much fuel oil are we using now? Right.
4,920,000
No, I mean, approximately. I mean, where is the biggest focus of where we're using fuel oil? I mean, is it all the schools, or is it the high school and Park Lane?
Park Lane and the high school.
So do we find that November was Sunday to us? Yeah. Well, that was after that. And my other question is, with the grant that we got from Dominion, so the wind if we have an idea how we're using that energy, I mean, are we going to help to offset the cost of the geothermal? I mean, how much do we have any idea of what kind of savings we're going to get from this? Have they given us any?
Like with the elementary schools, there's a payoff
right.
of when the geothermal is really saving money. And we're looking at all of our new schools are built for 50 years minimum, and we know from our history, our schools are lasting much longer. So we can estimate what will increase the return on investment for geothermal shortly. Especially if we have electricity costs. And if we couple it with other alternative sources, possibly that can only add to the shorter payoff.
Right, and I think that's where I was going. We could find a way to increase the electricity costs for those geothermal pumps.
Thank you. I don't mean to cut off conversation, but we will have ample time as we go through the budget process to come back to all of these areas and have a greater and lengthier discussion. Looking out at the audience, it's getting
We need to move along. The transportation bid, I believe, Ron?
Let me give you a quick update.
This is a way of follow-up. Last meeting was time our bid, which is around the town, your town, and care about that. Their we did publish some bid on November 28th at the meeting today.
More than ever. More than ever.
We also had questions.
Good news to hear that you had 11 bidders. That may be good for us. I'm not sure. Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Ron.
The next thing that I just wanted to provide you with an update, Ron, along with Jay Miner and I, met with representatives from Energy Education. And that's a firm that is currently in 1,000 different school districts from across the country and 20,000 different schools. The focus is really on changing behavior related to energy use. They have all of the data related to our energy costs. They came and gave us a proposal on possible dollars that we could save. We're going to do some follow-up as well as some site visits. There are currently 14 other school districts in the state of Connecticut that have participated in this process. The district that I just came from, we also participated with energy education. And again, if we can save any dollars on the operational side, it helps us with our program. If there's any possibility for us to save dollars in the next year's budget, we'll bring forward to you the energy ed, because it also is a contract that we enter into, and there's a guarantee within the contract. If we don't save those dollars, they write a check. This is a very, very successful national organization that's based in Texas. And there's a great deal of data that they provide, as well as an implementation plan. So if we feel this is a viable way to go, we'll bring that back to the board. But we were strongly encouraged the other day.
Okay.
And that's all I have to report.
Sounds like you've been busy at work. Thank you. That will move us to our committee and reports. Do you have any committee reports?
I do kind of something now. We had a Youth Service Bureau meeting, and I just wanted to make everybody aware that Youth Service Bureau is having an open house, and thank you for supporting our efforts in 2011, tomorrow, Friday, December 16th, from 9 to 6 at their site at 200 Boston Post Road. And Danny just wanted, she put this in it, thank you for embracing the holidays as a season of hope, and see firsthand how our community comes together to help their neighbors in need. And what they are going to do again this year is they have on display all of the gifts that they've collected from families in town, and it's really nice. So please try to go if you can. We also had a Wade meeting a couple weeks ago, and Some of the WAVE programs that they're going to be working on this year is the anti-bullying, but also Life of an Athlete, Be Aware, the Justice League, and they're also working with the Youth Action Council and Waterford's Helpful Youth. They're also, is Andrew still here? They're working on the new initiatives. They're going to see if they can get a Girl Scout badge for a project the Girl Scouts might be able to do with WAVE, in conjunction with WAVE, and maybe the Boy Scouts with the Eagle Scouts. They might try to do something too, Paul. So it might be something that, Eagle Scouts, it would be a good project for them to work on. I think that was it for WAVE. Our next meeting will be January 23rd, and it's always held at 6 o'clock at the Waterford Police Department. They're also going to be working on, I forgot during the holidays, they're working on the underage drinking challenge to make sure everybody is, safe. And they have a group of police officers that are being trained on the WAVE task force. And more information will follow on when they get that all going. Do you want to give a council meeting or? Okay. We had a Waterford Parents Liaison Council meeting a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be working on some type of an anti-bullying program that we can involve the whole town in at all grade levels. And I just have to say that I've been on the Parents Liaison Council for a long time, even before I was on the Board of Ed when I was, a parent. I'm still a parent, but years ago. And this group of parents is really phenomenal. I mean, they're so energetic, and they're involved in everything, and I think it's going to be a great year. And we're lucky that we have parents like that in our school system. They're just going to be making things better for our students. Also, I just want everybody to know that I think all the schools are collecting the box tops for education. So if you don't have any students in school anymore, like I don't, bring them here or drop them off at your neighborhood school. No, we have to share them. But even if the Board of Finance, Alan left, but even the Board of Finance, RTM members, everybody, if they could start collecting them, and it would really help out. And you get a lot of good items with that program. I think that's it. We haven't had a school building committee meeting yet.
Thank you, Jody. Are there other committee reports? John?
Oh, just that we had a policy committee meeting before this Board of Ed meeting. We voted to move 2 policies forward to the board, search and seizures, and gifts, grants, and bequests to the district, previously known as corporate sponsorship. So those will be on the agenda in January.
Thank you, John. Any other committee reports? Okay, hearing none, we can move to our next item, which is the agreement between the Waterford Board of Education and the Visiting Nurse Association of Southeastern Connecticut, period of July 1st, 2012 till June 30th, 2013. You have that in your packet. Jerry, did you want to speak to that?
I just wanted to mention to you that I am recommending to you the extension of this contract by 1 year, and Ron could give you a very thumbnail sketch, and we can both handle any questions that you might have about the agreement within your packet.
One part is there on the offset.
We're very pleased with the service.
Does the board have any questions? Can I just ask quickly, there were two terms in here. One was the nursing assistant and then the, and I was confusing. I didn't know, is there a difference? Okay, because I saw it and it was mentioned throughout the contract in two, but I didn't know if they were the same individual. Okay. But they're both, okay, that's fine. Any other comments or questions? Jody?
Craig, I have a question on the part, because we have 3 elementary schools now, but the enrollment is, we have more students. Do we have more nurses aides in that school, or we still just have the one nurse?
It's really driven by caseload, and right now,
It is.
And as far as they are their own supplies, correct? Can they do it with other school districts so we could save money? Do they?
Their own supplies for their own needs, because their own organization. It's really up to them to do that.
Or do they bill us?
They give us a set charge for the supplies that they use. They also see that we get other supplies, like an example. So they might use rubber gloves for their own nurse, nurse also, because that we might issue a rubber glove and use that for safety protocol of blood. So we do get some supplies too. We try to buy them the same year. So it is some regional savings.
Now,
John?
I move that the board approve the 1-year extension with the Visiting Nurses Association.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any other discussion? Martha? Yes.
I just noticed that under the elementary school, there's no hours for school help nurse, like we need to. We have 8 right now, and now there's no hours built in.
So again, it's driven by medical issues. So that and try to
Did we have, Okay, I see.
So it's not just on Saturday students, but sometimes on the healthcare plan that we have to administer.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the floor, and Ann seconded it. If there's no other discussion, we can move. Oh, Jody?
well, if you find though that the nurse needs more help, you will put an aide there, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How much that costs, and that's
Yes, sure.
So can we talk about what exactly we are removing? Are there aides in the schools now? And how many are there now? And how many are we taking out? I'm curious about that. You talked about a reduction in hours from the last contract to this one. How many hours are we talking about? I'm sensing some concern from the audience about us removing aides from the schools, and so I would hesitate to approve this contract without finding that out.
How much concern?
I'm just sensing it. If we're removing aides, and that's a problem, I don't know. We haven't really had time to talk about the number of hours that we're losing, how many aides are we losing.
And you've reviewed our needs based on the medical issues at each school.
So,
Just, may I, for clarification, and tell me if I'm wrong, but in this contract currently, we don't have the need for the aides currently, is that correct? And that this contract would not prohibit us from putting an aide into the classroom if we found that there was a need for that aide? That's what I'm trying to find out. Okay.
And I just think that the board needs more information to know exactly what we're talking about. I mean, I know we weren't, part of the analysis of what we need and what we don't need, but I think that information would be helpful before we could move forward.
We can either table this motion and come back to it at the next meeting. There's is there an urgency on the contract? Let me see. I didn't find that. I know we have the June. We have the date. Jody?
I agree with Sharon, and I know there's a lot of students that are on, they need medication during the day, and it's, they get hurt on the playground, especially in the elementary level. I'm a little concerned with, I'd like to know what we have now, and if we're doing the right thing for the future.
That's fine. John, would you be willing to withdraw your motion, or do you want it to go? We can go then to a table.
I don't understand why we can't vote on it. Essentially these hours that you have here and the rates that you've scheduled for the types of people is what we're going to use in our budget. And if we determine that we need aides in this special classrooms or buildings, we'll add them. At the dollar amount. Right. And I don't think there's no issue with the fact that we will provide aids where they are needed. It's just then this becomes the budget baseline. That's it.
And is the dollar amount on Schedule B higher than the dollar amount that's built into what we're contracting for? So we're contracting for a certain number of hours. If we go back to them and say we need additional hours, is that hourly rate higher because we didn't ask for it to begin with? No. Same hourly rate.
Okay. All right.
So
well,
the answer to your question is I don't see any concern with approving this.
Okay.
I
So we have.
withdraw my motion.
All right. So we have a motion on the table and a second. We can move to a vote. All those in favor of accepting the contract as it is, and with the understanding that if there is a need, that you will come back and the aides would be put back in.
I think what we agreed to was that we were going to get more information and talk about perhaps revising.
Can come back and we can still do that, but we can move forward.
True, but I think the motion on the floor is to
Right. Exactly. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
Will the motion carry?
And we'll get to that.
And we'll bring the, thank you. Sorry for that confusion. That takes us, where are we on the agenda? We are now to our policy readings, and the first policy, which we had our first reading at the last Board of meeting, was on personnel and the use of social media, social networking, policy number 4118.236. This is our second reading. You should have the policy at your table. We went through this. This has received extensive research. This went back to, I think, the summertime. But go ahead, Craig. Yes.
The only change since the first reading is initially number 3. We
Yes.
had brought up last board that meeting by a public comment, and it was reiterated in a recent as-seen review to only really restrict the trending, if you will, on current workers, public school students.
Right. Right. And I think they need to clarify that for students it said current students, right? Thank you, Craig. Comments, Joe?
I want to make the motion that the board approve policy on social networking
Thank
as
you.
presented here.
Thank you. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion is carried, and we have that new policy. That brings us to Series 4000. Oh, no, excuse me. That will bring us to Series 5000 under the policy on bullying, and I believe this was being promoted by state regulation, and it's basically to get in our cyber bullying piece into the policy, and this is again for second reading. Greg, did you want to bring any points there?
No, I just to give you an update, even though our policy says that we keep that school conduct plan by January, we did have an ad meeting, principal asked draft of those plans already, so we should be close to schedule. I think we have a little flexibility for the plans of the draft form versus the final form, so thanks for
Great. Thank you. And the committee, though, doesn't need to be in place until July, right? Okay. Right. Okay.
I make the motion that the board approve the policy on bullying as
Thank
presented.
you, John. Second by Joe. Is there discussion? Any comments or discussion on that? Hearing none, we will move to a vote. All those we move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That motion is carried as well. Thank you. It brings us to our final policy, which is on field trips, Series 6000. And if I may just, before we begin, just say that this policy, we never had in place a policy on our field trips that dealt with international travel, and therefore this policy, I believe, and Craig, you can speak to this, was put in place so that we would have something in place. And just if I may preface these remarks by saying it really is in no way at all intended to diminish or discourage any type of international travel. I think this board has shown over the years that it's very pro world languages and pro study abroad. So as we go through it, I'd just like to make a few more comments, but I wanted to get that out, that this is definitely for just the coverage piece, because we did not safety. Exactly.
And so we've always had regulations, so we've never had a policy statement. The policy statement on the blue sheet, broad statement, I think captures that nicely. On the regulations, consider to see the revised copy as we get. That cleans up whether or not you capitalize principles throughout the document, but also on
think there was that piece on no staff under the field trips abroad, under the rationale. Did you mention that? Oh, there was that. Excuse me, did you mention under the rationale on the use of the school facilities? I didn't hear whether you said that that anyone organized.
So on letter J of the regulation, under rationale, the last paragraph ends when we basically say that we want to talk about sort of things that are endorsed by the Board of Education, still adjourned travel.
Right.
That allows that part of that to have community folks talk about this topic.
Right. And just, I would, if I may, I think this regulation, just because I know we have people here this evening that are very concerned about this policy and international travel, so I'm speaking to, said that I felt as we were looking at this and we went through the friendly amendments, I don't think that changed really any basis for this, but also that it allows the policy is benign. It really just states that we encourage international travel and study abroad. The regulation pieces, I think there's some latitude there. I think there was some concern with the international travel, confining it to 12 months, that in some cases, the 12-month window, that in some cases, if the trip was a bona fide trip and he came through the administration, there's latitude in the last piece of the regulation allowing the principal and then the superintendent to actually look at that plan and use discretionary power. So that helped me with looking at this, because I know that when you plan a trip, there are occasions where you don't want to be confined necessarily, but we do want to set in some procedure to international travel and to have this understood. Right.
And quite frankly, in doing the research on all the different international trips that the school system has sponsored and encouraged, just about every trip has had a 12-month window. Yeah. What that affords is students who may have some financial issues or concerns an opportunity for the family to save money over time, as well as to do the appropriate planning. But when you really look at the history here, that's been in place.
The motion to approve the field trip policy as presented.
Is there any discussion with the board? Jody?
I just want, this doesn't really have much to do with this, but can we have the students come back and tell us about their experiences when they do that? Because we don't really hear anything about it. I mean, I hear out, if I happen to, run into a student, but I'd love to hear about their experiences.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just, so we can
I think we do, but I would also, before we vote, just like to say that I do believe that we want to encourage international travel, and that we also want to have reciprocity and welcome back our guests overseas in France and Italy and the great programs, and recognize the people that have worked very hard to bring international travel and the sistering towns between the two countries. So I hope that this policy will not prevent us from moving in that direction. I think that's what I believe. Thank you. Kevin?
Or was the liability speaking on the board?
Well, there's some significant vetting whenever we have our students stay with any family abroad. We need to be very, very careful around safety. Because we really need to be very, very careful with liability. So one of the first things we need to do is make sure our insurance coverage covers it. Also that our students are placed in appropriate settings. Our school rules and the kinds of conduct that apply here in Waterbridge should apply wherever they go, so that our students are minors, so there are things that we just need to be very, very careful of regarding drugs, alcohol, and other kinds of things that may be a little bit more permissible somewhere else. So I mean, those are all the kinds of things that we want to make sure occur.
Jody?
One more question.
Sorry.
If we find out there's problems in the country that they're going to, do we have, as a board, do we have the right to cancel the trip, or do we leave that up to the parents, or?
Again, that's another really good thing that planning ahead of time.
Thank you. We have the motion and seconded. If there's no other discussion, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor of the policy 6,000 on field trips, please signify by saying aye.
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 Is anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Abstain? Okay. Ann?
Motion for adjourn?
Is there a second? No one's seconding. Kevin, all those in favor? Aye. Adjourned. Sorry, it's been a